Hello, everybody. My name is Divo Spiovic, and welcome to the talk on analyzing flight simulator data using the Wolfram language. So the flight simulator has been with us for 40 years, and I thought it was going to be an interesting thing to show how we can connect a game like Flight Simulator with Mathematica and use all the powers of the different domains that Mathematica has to offer really easy and explore a world within a world, so a simulation. So we're going to go and try standard functionality that has been around for a while, plus new things from 12.3, just like video processing. So let's get started. First thing to do is to do a little bit of the history of the flight simulator. This will, for the folks in Wolfram Research, you will be happy to know that the first flight simulator was the result of the thesis, the master thesis in 1976 of Bruce Artwick that graduated from Urbana-Champaign. And he created a paper called Versatile Computer Generated Dynamic Flight Display. Out of his thesis, a company was formed, which was called Sublogic. And in 1979, the first version came out. And this is a little bit of how it looked. The first flight simulator looked back then. I was a very young boy, probably I think it was 11 or 12 when I first saw this thing, which was absolutely outstanding for that time. So later, Microsoft bought the rights, and in 1982, we get the first flight simulator from Microsoft. This is just a snapshot of what it looked like. You know, it went through several versions. Now, when we get to Windows 95, the world looks really different. You got this rasterize of satellite images going on. This is a flight into Toronto International Airport, which was really interesting. And it went through different generations until around 2007, Microsoft decides to close shop on Microsoft Flight Simulator. Lockheed Martin buys the source code and prepares a product that they can use in enterprise, you know, very sturdy, strong for business and military purposes, I guess, product called Prepare 3D. And in 2019, there was a big announcement that Microsoft was getting the flight simulator back. And now, if you, which has VR capabilities, and it's absolutely outstanding. So this is a little flight I made through the Thames River, flying all the way to London City. So how do we connect this? There are many ways to spin a cat, but you know, it's always good to take advantage of the great stuff other people make. Someone wrote a Python interface that allows you to connect a Python program in this case with Prepare 3D. There's a connector. It's called SimConnect. So in this, my standard Windows PC, I have Flight Simulator and this program in Python that created a web server. And what we did is, inquire from another PC, go and ask for certain variables of the environment of the flight, and bring it back into Mathematica. So this is the code that was used to take the data out of Python web server. And just to show you the immense capabilities of this SimConnect, what we'll see here is a list of all the different variables that you can get from the simulator. So these are all variables out of the engine. These are from the instrumentation data. There's hundreds of variables look at. And we'll have the link to the actual documentation. So for the selection, for this exercise, what we did is, okay, we run this script on the other PC, created the server, and these are the variables that we'd be interested in to explore the simulated flight world of the Microsoft Flight Simulator. So we're gonna first show the data drop functionality. It has been with the Wolfram language for several years already. So the first thing to do is in one of the flights, we basically added those variables of interest into a data bin. And now what we're gonna do is bring the data back from the data bin, we put it in time series, and we got all kinds of variables that were captured during the flight. And just to show you, from the airspeed through airspeed, density, pressure, temperature, wind velocity, you name them, all these variables were captured. Okay, so from one side we have the variables that we have on a data bin. On the other hand, at the same time as we did the flight, we capture video. Okay, and from that video, using the functionality from the Wolfram language, I can look at what the clock said in the first frame of the video, and that allows me then to synchronize the first time captured on the data bin with the video itself, which allows then to be able to track any video frame with any variable you want. So if we're looking at this specific frame, this is where the flight is. And what this allows you to do is, with the new video processing functionality, we wrote some code, and using parallel processing and whatnot, I did a picture-in-picture of this. Let me show you. This is the flight. On the left side, you will see latitude, longitude, and altitude of the plane during the flight. And this is the approach to the airport. I'm not a pilot, so forgive me for my lack of real pilot skills from my landing. Okay, this is the airplane coming down. Look how beautiful the new flight simulator looks. All right, so we showed how you can create videos out of videos by reprocessing the video. Now, let's see how real the flight simulator environment is. So one of the things that we can do with the Mathematica 12.3, you've got import capabilities out of PDFs. So we're gonna go and look at the PDF manual of the Cessna 152, which is the airplane which just showed the flight. And one of the tables that you see there is that when you run out of power and the propeller is windmilling, you will be gliding, and you will glide. For every 1,000 feet that you lose, you glide approximately 1.6 miles. All right, that's interesting. So let's see what happened on the flight. So during the flight, what I did is, okay, let's turn the mixture ratio of the airplane off. So basically there was no more fuel going into the airplane, and the RPM just went and the propeller started windmilling, and I started losing the height. So this section over here of the flight specifically. So we can take the position of when that thing happened. And then we can see the glide path, right? So at 8,000 feet, we start the engine, engine turned off and we started gliding down, and this was the glide path over the Sedona airport. And, using the geo functionality of Mathematica, we can start calculating the glide path. In this case, it was 2.3 nautical miles, for which I can then go and create a fitted model, which tells me this is the slope. And we can see that based on my flight, it was 1.54 nautical miles per every 1,000 feet dropped, which is within 4% of this picture that we saw on the manual. So now we can show the two charts. This is the chart from the PDF. This is the chart on the data that we brought from the data bin, and I put a dot here, which is the dot corresponding to 1.6 in 1,000. So it looks pretty good. So this experiment turned out quite well. Now, for other flights, we said, okay, let's switch over technologies. The database link has been with Mathematica for a while, so why don't we try the Mongo database link, which is quite new. This is the code that was used to capture the data. So now what we can do is go and get so these are all the different flight logs that I created on the Mongo database. And this is one of the collections, the one that we're going to investigate further. So this is the data. And as you can see, you got the time and different types of variables. And I just left a little bit of data for you to explore in a GitHub if you want to play around with that later. And let's explore this data set. So one of the things, for example, what we're doing here is capturing at what time, the local time of the airplane that we saw, remember? So that's a 12 noon. And in this case, we're taking I flew around the Sedona area, and basically, let's look at the area within the geo-bounding box in which the flight took place. So this is the satellite image taken out of Wolfram Language, really easy with a geo image. And then, you also have geo elevation data, and you can mash it all together so you can see where your flight took place on 3D. So you got the geo image stamped into the geo elevation data, and this is a snapshot of where we flew around. So the other question that I thought was worth exploring is, okay, is the environment actually obeying the laws of nature? It's a simulation. So does this look anything like reality? So, with Mathematica, you can look at the any formula, look up for a formula. So you got the formula of the ideal gas, right? That's the formula. You can write it this way. So you know that based on the pressure of the environment, the air, the temperature, and the density of the air, it should be a constant. And in the log, we do have the ambient density, right? The ambient pressure and the temperature too. So let's chart that along the flight. And it's 287.05, and it's pretty constant. There might be a little error on but it's minimal. The mean is 287.063. Lots of units of measure. I'll leave that to you. And okay, so does this match reality? We can use the Wolfram alpha connection to look at the gas constant, and it's 8.314 joules per mole Kelvin. So this is a gas, any gas, ideal gas. So it could be for helium, hydrogen, or whatever. So what we need to do is take the air, right, and correct it based on the remove by the number of moles to see if we can get to the same number. So basically what we have is 8.31335. Here it says 8.314. It's it's almost it's spot on, 0.9999. That was good. Now, the other thing, if you start reading the manual on the airplanes or the training course, which hopefully one day I'll do myself to be a pilot, it tells you there that, you know, as you start climbing, the true airspeed and the indicator airspeed starts to diverge, because the standard way of deducing the speed is the difference between the static and dynamic pressure on the gauges. So the rule of thumb is that per every 1,000 feet that you climb, the difference between true airspeed and indicated airspeed is increases by 2%. Because the air is thinner at higher levels, the airspeed looks lower. So let's see if that event happens. So basically what we did is started climbing, and then we can measure both the airspeed, the true airspeed, and the indicated airspeed. So these are, I did the ratio between the true and the indicated airspeed, and we can chart it based on altitude. I may have messed up on this area playing around with the RPMs. So what we can do is, we can go and delete these cases, right? And just feed it against that model. In our case, it tells us it's 1.6% instead of the 2, close enough. So switching gears, let's look at a little bit of aerodynamics and what we can learn from the flight simulator. So, there's a flow direction, there's a lift. This is a traditional form of the formula for the lift, which is given by half the density of the air, the surface of the wing, the speed that you're going, and something called the lift coefficient, right? So let's see if we can derive the lift coefficient on the flight based on this flight. So here we have all the data. Just to show you again how you can use all kinds of functionality in Mathematica. This is the flight path that I took. I live in the Atlanta area. There's an airport very close to Kennesaw Mountain. So went around and started climbing. So what you see on this chart is, okay, as we start climbing at 3,000 feet, full throttle ahead, trying to maintain the best climb rate I could. And what we're trying to do is find what is the relationship between the optimal rate of climb and the altitude in which the airplane is. We can do a model fit there. We can take a look at the residuals and see, if the model fit works fine. This is all standard Mathematica functionality. Let's see what the Cessna manual states. So you have this table that is the weight of the airplane is 1,670 pounds. This is what the rate of climb should be at a given altitude and given temperature, right, of the air. So here what we did is we plotted the results from the flight log, the linear regression, the bands of uncertainty, and then these dots are the result of this table. So I should double check this later or learn how to fly better, which could be the case. And the next slide will show that there is a relationship between the angle of attack and the RPMs. So we get another log. And what I'm trying to do here is change the attitude of the airplane, the angle, but try to keep the vertical speed constant. So keep the flight level and see if I can get a relationship between the angle of attack and the RPM. So what I'm doing here is trying to fly straight, not going up or down, and reducing the RPMs of the engine. You're going to start dropping, but you change the angle of attack, which creates more lift. And so we're trying to see what is the relationship between those parameters. So from the data points, we got a distribution, and we're going to focus on anything that was between plus minus 60 vertical speed flights per minute, feet per minute. So this is the curve that we get. When the RPMs are low, you need to increase the angle of attack, and if not, it follows this type of equation. I remove the outliers that were up there, and I can ask Mathematica to provide us with the a formula, to find a formula. So this is the formula that Mathematica found, which is a quadratic formula. So the last experiment was, okay, let's try to calculate that lift coefficient. From NASA, we got this little nice slide that shows again the equation. And let's see if we can calculate based on the flight what that lift coefficient is. So here you have the lift coefficient versus the angle of attack. We calculate the linear model for it and show how it fits. And I was looking and looking and looking to see if there was any publication about the lift coefficients of this airplane per se, the Cessna 152. Found this paper written by a student on the icing effects, and the link will be in the last slide. So one of the things that we can do is we can go and get from the internet the image of one of the tables that shows what's supposed to be the same chart. They have two lines. One is the bare wing calculation, right? Which is, and the other one, because this is a study on ice, effects on a wing, we don't care about the blue ones. We cared about the gold color. So, okay, I don't want to calculate by hand, what the point is here. Why don't we use Mathematica image processing capabilities? We can extract the color gold. So these are the dots, right? I don't care about this dot at the bottom. Get rid of that. And basically what we can use is use code to extract the actual points in the chart, which we did. This is the study that was performed using the flight simulator, and this is what's on the paper. So fit is not good, but it's a nice way of testing the capabilities that we have of analyzing any log using Mathematica. So in the last slide, I'm leaving references on the history of the flight simulator, Bruce paper that was what he based his first code to write the first flight simulator, a link to the Prepare 3D, the Lockheed Martin interface. You can do many more things that we one day will probably explore, which is creating artificial planes and AI, whatever, handbooks, logs. And I want to thank Anton. We discussed about this presentation. Roberto Peon, he assisted one of the tech conferences, and he's a very avid pilot, so he knows his stuff and told me what things to explore. And also the Washington area SIG group, Bruce and team, thank you very much for your input. And thank you for the presentation. I'm open for any questions. Let's check the chat. Could I log my flight in real time? Would it be possible to be playing the game and have a separate feed getting the data and playing? Yes, you can. Yes, that's feasible. I just did it this way because I'm only one. But you can actually have the code running, you know, in the same machine. So I don't think that would be an issue. But you know, needs to be explored. Has this allowed me to improve my personal flight skills? I have no flight skills. I did not get a private pilot license. As soon as I had my first child, my wife told me that I could not try to fly anymore. So I'm waiting for them to graduate, and then I'll start again. Anton asks, do you prefer the data bean or Mongo data bean at this point? That's a very good question. I run into one, you know, depends on the rate on which you send the data to the data drop. I run into a problem that I was sending too much data. So that's why I decided to go also to and use MongoDB. So yeah, so that's a good point. And you know, if you're sending too much data into the data drop, you might run into issues. It would be good for the Wolfram people to provide some feedback on what's the actual rate that needs to be the max rate that you can actually send data to the data bin. Jesse asks about graphics Ds and GeoImage. Does it make it not too hard to visualize 3D planes over terrain? Not at all. It's really, really nice. You can do other experiments. The main issue of playing live with that on a Zoom presentation is that both Mathematica and Zoom compete for video resources, and it does not end well. So I had to use a rasterize to be able to show a snapshot. Yeah, Kenneth writes about applying this for UAVs. That's a fantastic thing. I think there is a lot of possibilities to do something really, really nice with this. So thank you all. I'll be in the Wolfram Technology Conference virtually. Thank you for assisting today at the talk. Hope to see you later. Take care.